Welcome everyone to a big clash between Dragon Chilling's Ding Liren and Chess Gurukul's Praggnanandhaa. This is the Blitz section. They already played in the Rapid where Ding was really better against Prag, but in the end the game was drawn. Now we have a Blitz game of 3 minutes plus 2 seconds increment, and this is going to be super exciting. A handshake here and off we go. Ding opens with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight comes out to f3 and Prag plays his favorite Bogo Indian. He had stopped playing it, but against Ding he decides to go for it and now brings his bishop back to e7. Ding gains space with e4, d6 and knight d7. This move you want to break with either e5 or c5 and put your other knight on c6. Pawn to e5, d5, a5 and bishop b2. Look at the amount of space that Ding has captured on the board, and black pieces do look a bit cramped here. Prag takes on b4, pawn takes, he chops off the rook on the queen side, queen takes a1. Makes a lot of sense to enter in with the queen. I like how Ding plays with his left hand in blitz, to save time because the clock is on the left side of white. Now c5 played, he takes, knight takes c6. Maybe Ding could have also not taken that pawn, but he decides to take it, and now the bishop comes to c3 defending the pawn here. Okay, how does Prag continue now? There are weaknesses in his camp. d5 is weak, b5 is weak, d6 pawn is weak, but he also has his own play, knight b6, bishop e6. There are some good plans that he can go for, but he needs to decide where his pieces belong. He goes queen c7, white quickly castles here, and now do you want to actually transfer your knight from d8 e6? Wow, what a cool move by Prag. Knight d8, that's an incredible plan that he's come up with. He's going to e6 and then to f4 in order to reroute his knight, and you can see Ding is a bit surprised with Prag's decision. Ding brings his rook to d1, Prag jumps in with his knight to e6 looking to come to the f4 square, and now Ding stops it with pawn to g3. b6 played to get your bishop from b7 on this long diagonal. Already black's position starts to kind of become more powerful, just like a spring where it was coiled. All the pieces are coming to life. Bishop to b7, knight to f6, pressure on e4, there's pressure on c4. Ding has to play this carefully. It's difficult for Ding to find a very good way to get his pieces together. He goes knight f1, bishop b7. He would love to get his knight to d5. If he does that, his position should be fine. Maybe knight 3d2 makes sense, or queen b1 to protect this pawn. And Prag has built up a very solid time edge as Ding goes into his thinking pose. He's trying to consider something radical perhaps. He goes queen b1 and now knight to f6, not letting white to get this knight e3, knight d5 plan makes a lot of sense. I think Prag could be a bit tempted with this move b5 to open up this file here. He goes knight to f6, attacking the pawn to e4, pawn on e4, and knight d2, still keeping in mind that he can go knight d5. But Prag already has another knight that can join in, knight g5, attacking here. He plays knight g5. Now the e4 pawn needs to be protected, so f3 makes a lot of sense. I mean, what else way do you protect? Bishop d3 doesn't feel right. Would misplace the bishop. So pawn to f3 is what I think should be a good move, and you can see Ding getting a bit fidgety, bit uncomfortable here. And he goes pawn to f3, d5 played, and this is a mistake. Wow. I mean, Pragg could have gone b5, taking advantage of this bishop being unprotected, but d5 has the same point that Pragg wants to take, and now this is hanging, but cd5 wins the game for white, because after takes, there's an incredible move h4 which traps the knight, check and king g2. Oh, Ding takes, knight takes d5 now. Can Ding find cd5 and h4? It's very difficult to find this, but if he can manage to do that, no, he doesn't. He plays queen b3, and I think it's a natural move, a human move, but cd5 and h4, well, it was a complicated variation. Now Pragg can take on c3, but Pragg is looking for some killer blows, it seems. He's not convinced that knight takes c3 is the way. He takes, queen takes, and now with your bishop lined up and the knight looking here and the knight looking here, somewhere you do feel that a move like e4 should work, but Pragg goes f5, which is a very strong move. He's getting his rook also into the game. Ding already down to 20 seconds on the clock. He's shaking his head. He goes queen b3, lining up his queen against the king. King h8 makes sense, but Pragg is so accurate. He pushes his pawn to f4, c5, moves his king away, as there was a check, and Ding needs to make a move. He's down to 12 seconds. Queen takes b6 check, king g2, and now e4. Open up the king, bishop and knight. He goes e4, pawn takes on e4, and look at this. Queen is looking at f2, the rook is looking at f2, just f takes g3, and black is better. Black is close to winning. I mean, close to totally winning actually. Pragg takes. He also has good amount of time on the clock. Knight g3, and now rook f2 check. Rook f2 check. If he goes king h1, and now this little switch to the king side. There's just no way to defend against the mate here. If you go knight f1, I go queen h3, and there's a mate here. And if you bring the other knight, the bishop is hanging and e4 is hanging and everything is over. So just queen h6, swinging the queen over. Can Pragg find it? He has 23 seconds. He takes on e2, which is also a great move. Knight takes e4. What a great calculation here, because if you take on e4, bishop e4 is checkmate. So he goes knight f3, and now knight to g5. Powerful move, making use of this pin. But okay, knight, you are a bit afraid of this, but you can take and still be clearly better. But will Pragg find knight g5? He goes knight f2. He tries to cash in, and I think that's a practically great decision, because now you are not a pawn up. Yes, you take the pawn and you are a pawn up now. Queen takes b4. You also have the bishop pair against the open king. That's a huge edge. Now taking care of the back rank with h6. Queen comes to f4. With the time that Ding has and the position he has, it's tough. But Pragg also down to his last few seconds. By the way, if you'd taken the bishop, the knight was hanging. So bd6 played. Now the knight goes to d4, queen f4. Now knights protect each other, but the dark squares are too weak. Knight f5. There's no time to think. Queen h2. He takes the pawn on h3. King f2, and another check comes in. Everything's hanging here. Ding Liren is lost, and what an amazing game by Praggnanandhaa. He beats Ding Liren, and that's a very, very cool victory.
Freedom begins with a choice. In 2008, we made ours. Freedom knows no borders. Step by step, we became part of the global financial system. In 2019, we went public on NASDAQ. In 2024, we built a digital ecosystem. Fintech, lifestyle, telecom, everything comes together in one unified digital space. Today, freedom is a system that shapes markets. $2 billion in annual revenue, $9.3 billion market capitalization, 11 million customers, 11,300 plus employees, 230 offices worldwide. Freedom begins with a choice, and every day we make it again. Freedom Holding Corp. One ecosystem, many possibilities.